Hey guys, thanks for clicking on this video. Just a couple of things I wanted to say before I get started into the video itself. The first one being is that as a makeup artist, a freelance makeup artist, I try and provide the highest quality of service that I can to my clients. And with that, I try and get products that are to the higher end, just so that my clients can feel super special on whatever occasion that they're going to. And there's nothing wrong with using affordable products. I use them on myself, but just with my videos, sometimes if I pull out a product that is a bit more expensive, just know that I have it available, so I am going to use it every now and then. And with that being said, I never want you guys to feel that if you don't have fancy makeup or expensive makeup that it's not quality, because a price tag never guarantees a good product. That's definitely not the case. And I'm big on wanting you guys to just use what you have in front of you and just sort of make it work. So I might recommend products every now and then, but I don't ever want you guys to feel like you have to go and get any of them ever. So just something I wanted to say before we got started. Another thing I wanted to say just before we started was, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. If your foundation routine is working for you and you love it, that's great. Keep doing what you're doing. This is more a video for people who maybe are beginners, or someone who's sort of having a bit of trouble with their routine, or they just want to see how somebody else does it. So if you disagree with the things I'm saying in the video, that's totally fine. Do whatever you're doing, and I'm glad it's working out for you. But stay tuned to see how I like to do a really super basic foundation and concealer and powder. So as far as the different types of foundations that are available out there, we sort of have liquid, cream and powder. The one I'm going to be working with today is liquid, just because I find it's the one that most of the people that I know work with. It's the one that I work with the most, and it's the one that sort of works with all skin types, normal, dry, combination, oily. It sort of works for everyone. So that's what I'm going to be using today. And as far as listing the sort of products that I like to use, I'm not going to come through and list them all, because there are so many different foundations and concealers that are available. So what I think I'm going to do is list just a few of my favorites in the description box below. So the first topic that I'm going to touch on firstly is color matching, and this is something that I think is super important because we want to get the right color for our face. When you're trying to pick your foundation color in the shops or wherever you are, try and steer away from testing them on your hand, just because you're not going to get a true reading of what's going on in your face, just because you're putting makeup on your face and not your hand. So with that being said, I'm going to come through and test it on my face. The best place that I think gives the most accurate reading is just on this sort of cheek and jawline area. What I'm going to do now is I've picked 3 colors that I think maybe are close to what I think. I'm not totally sure, but I'm going to come and test them now. And what I want to do is just take each one and just give it a little stripe down the side of my cheek here. So we've got them on there, I'm having a bit of a look. We can come in and rub them in a little bit just to see which one blends the nicest into your skin tone. So looking at these 3 here, I think this first one is a bit too light for me. The middle one is blending quite well, so I think I'm going to go with that one, just because this last one here I think is a little bit dark for my skin. So now that I've picked my foundation, I'm going to come through and prep. Moisturizer, foundation, what's first? Hold your horses. First step should always be to wash your hands. They've got bacteria on them from touching your phone or door handles or whatever it might be, so always give your hands a really good wash before you start your makeup, just because you don't want to be putting that bacteria onto your face. The next step would be to also, if you're someone that uses a sponge, I would go and give that a really good soak as well, just because sponges are designed to soak up liquid, right? So if I come in and dip my nice dry sponge into my foundation, it's really going to suck up a lot of that product and sort of waste a bit of that product. But if I have a wet sponge, it would have already absorbed some of the water, so it's not going to suck up nearly as much foundation as a dry sponge would. So hopefully you took your makeup off from the night before or the day before. If you haven't, take this time now to wash your face, or either take a little micellar water all over the face just to clean the canvas, I guess. And the next step is to now come in with some moisturizer. And for this, I'm just going to use the old classic Cetaphil, great brand. It's a really neutral product that doesn't have many fragrances or perfumes in it. So it's a great one for all skin types. So what I'm going to do now is just come in and apply it all over my face, just with my hands. The reason I love to use my hands is that I can really feel that I'm getting it all over my face. I know that I'm not going to miss any spots. But if you want to come in and use a brush for this step, that is totally fine. Also, no matter the skin type, I'm always going to moisturize the face. Oily skin, dry skin, I don't care who you are, always moisturize. Because when you think about it, moisturizer is adding water as opposed to oil, and water is hydration. So no one's skin can ever really have too much hydration. So do not skip this step if you're someone that is super oily. If you're worried about it, if you're concerned, try and pick a moisturizer that is oil-free. Another question I get asked a lot about is primers. So for me, I personally find that I don't really like to use many primers. I find that the products that I use, the techniques that I might use, don't really require a primer. What primers do, they sort of fill in pores and fine lines and really smooth the skin before you apply foundation, which is super great. If you are going to apply a primer, do not skip the moisturizer step. I think that's quite a common misconception, because the primer isn't going to give you any hydration, it is just going to fill the fine lines and pores in. So it can feel quite dry if you do skip the moisturizer step, which is not something that feels very good for a full day of makeup wearing. Now it's time to actually come and put my foundation on, which is super exciting. Some of you might notice that I am doing my foundation before I do my concealer, and there's sort of a couple reasons why I do that. The main one being is that if I come and put concealer all over my face and then foundation on top, we might find that we're putting maybe too much product on. So the foundation might cover more than you're expecting. So let it have a try first, and then you can come over the top with your concealer if you need to. This way we're not building up too much product onto the skin. So when it comes to actually putting your foundation on, there are a few ways that you can pop it on. The first one being with your hands. It's a super quick way and super easy way to put your foundation on every day. It also probably wastes the least amount of product because it's not being absorbed by brushes or sponges, which is really cool. The second way is to come in with a brush, and this is a really great and clean way to really quickly put on your foundation, and it does a really good job of smoothing that product in as well and really buffing it into the skin. And then lastly, you can use a sponge, which gives like a really nice blurred sort of effect as well. So it doesn't really matter which way you do it. For me, I'm going to be using a brush today. It's what I love doing on myself, on clients. I just find I can build up a really nice coverage with a brush, so that's what I'm going to be using today. So when we start to put the foundation onto our face, we want to sort of start where we need the most coverage. So for me, looking at my skin, it's in my cheek area and then around this chin. So what I'm going to do, I've just got the foundation on the back of my hand. I'm just going to come and put my brush in, and then I'm going to start to pat it on where I need it. And by patting it, I'm making the most of this product and I'm pushing the foundation onto these areas. Once I start to swipe, it starts to sheer out that foundation, which is great. So I'm going to come in and pat it on first. And then in the areas that I don't need as much, so like my forehead, I can come through and just swipe a nice thin layer over the top there. So now that there's not much product left on my brush, I'm just going to come through and swipe it down my neck, just to make sure that I'm getting a really nice blend between my face and my neck. I've got this little like neck pimple going on today, which isn't great. That's fine, nothing a bit of makeup can't fix. So now I've got it super nice and even across my face. I'm pretty happy with the coverage that I'm getting. If you're finding that you need maybe a bit more coverage through here or a bit through here, what I would suggest is coming through and just try patting a little bit more foundation in that area. So now that my foundation is on, I'm really happy with that. I'm going to come through and put some concealer on. And when you're picking your concealer, similar to the foundation, you want to sort of test it on your face as well, which is great. When you're picking your concealer, I would encourage you not to pick shades that are too light, just because with concealer, you're typically putting it on blemishes, right? Or darker areas. And if you come in and put something that is too light on top of something that's too dark, you sort of get a bit of an ashy sort of color, unless you're doing some color correcting, which is, I think, a whole nother video about color correcting, because it is quite an advanced technique and it is something that does get done wrong quite often. So I'm going to do another video on color correcting. But when you're picking your concealers, really they should be about the same color as your skin, if not maybe one shade lighter. The concealer I'm going to be using is the Bye Bye Under Eye Concealer by IT Cosmetics. Great concealer, super full coverage, and it's one that isn't too drying. It's quite a hydrating concealer, so I love that for pretty much everywhere on my face. Who doesn't love a bit of hydration? So I'm going to come through now and put it under my eye and just on a couple little blemishes on my chin. So for this, I'm just going to put it on the back of my hand. And what I'm going to do is just blend it out with my finger. I find that the warmth from your finger really helps blend out the product and it blends quite smoothly. So when I come to put it on, I'm not going to put it like a big blanket right under my eye. What I'm going to do is put it mostly where I need it. And 99% of people don't need it all under their eye. When you have a look, it's mostly through this inner corner is where you get most of the darkness. So I'm going to come in and just place a little bit on there. I'm just going to come in with my finger and blend this out, focusing it on this inner corner here. So once I'm happy with the coverage, there's not much left on my finger anymore. I'm going to come and blend it out with my finger and just sort of spread that product out. If I come in and put the concealer all over that under eye really thick, we're going to be putting too much product, which can lead to things like cakiness and creasing. So you can always add more. It's harder to take it off than it is to put more on, if I could give you anything today. I'm just going to come and blend this out. On clients I like to use a sponge, and sometimes on myself I like to use a sponge. I can't help myself. It does give you a really nice sort of blurred edge, a really, really nice blend. And it feels really, really soft. The sponge that I'm using today is Kitology Sponge, 20 bucks, truly the softest sponge I've ever had in my life. It's so good. And yeah, super affordable as well, which is great. So now you're happy with your under eyes, you can come in if you need to and do any little spots that you might have on the face. You can see that I'm putting a really, really tiny amount. And I'm just going to blend these out with my finger or my sponge. I'm going to have to cover this bad boy on my neck as well, which is a bit cheeky. So now that I'm happy with my concealer, I'm going to come in and set my face. And some of you might be thinking I'm going to be baking today, and I am not. So with the rise of popularity of things like Instagram makeup and full glam makeup, sort of came baking into the popular mainstream sort of everyday life. I know it's something that's been done by drag queens and makeup artists, celebrities for a long, long time. But now in everyday life, I think personally that it is a bit hectic. And for those of you who don't know what baking is, it is essentially putting on an excess of powder in certain areas of the face to really, really set a product really well. And it definitely does do that, but the excess powder does seek its way into little fine lines and wrinkles, and it can add a lot of texture to the skin, which isn't something that is super wearable everyday face-to-face life, and isn't something that is super natural. So for me, I personally don't like to bake on myself or on clients, just because it can add a bit more attention to those fine lines. So if you're not going to bake, what are you going to do, Alex? I am going to come in and set my face just with a loose powder today. You could use pressed, you could use whatever you like to use, just your normal face powder. I'm going to come through just on a little flatty brush, doesn't really matter again which one you use. And I'm going to come in and just press the powder where I need it. So for me, it's going to be in areas that I've either put concealer or in places that I know sort of move a bit. So my smile lines, under my eyes, and on my chin, because I like to touch my chin for whatever reason. So I'm coming in and I'm just pressing the product in for now. I'm not swiping it, because by doing that, I'm going to come in and sort of mess up the concealer or the foundation that's underneath. So I'm just going to come in and press. Not sure if you can see, but I do have a little bit of excess powder on my nose that we can see. But that's totally fine. We'll clean that up in a minute. So coming in just to press everything in, make sure it's nice and set. And once you're happy with that, just come in and swipe away the excess. So just by keeping the powder in the areas that we need it, we're sort of keeping a bit of shine in the skin and keeping the skin looking as natural as we sort of can. But if you're someone that likes that matte look, or someone that has quite an oily face all over, come in and just put the powder wherever you want to put it. There's no rules. I just like to put the powder just where I need it, just because it feels more natural for me. So this is pretty much the finished video for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching this super quick and easy foundation concealer 101 video. I look a bit funny now because I haven't got any shape or dimension or color in my face, but stay tuned for my next video to see how I add some blush, contour and highlight, just to sort of finish up a super easy base makeup. So thanks so much for watching, and I can't wait to see you guys next time.